my name is Ariel, and today we're going to be talking about sex and aging with our wonderful co-hosts, Autumn and Jillian. How are you all doing this morning?
Doing well, thank you.
Awesome. Specifically within the topic of sex and aging, we're going to be talking about some challenges that older people face when it comes to having sex and thoughts about it, which include finding a partner, physical restrictions, communications with healthcare providers, and social constructs. So let's start at the beginning. How do older people even find partners?
Well, a lot of them, being that they are older adults, may already have partners, but it is reported that women say that the number one reason for sexual inactivity is due to the lack of an able sexual partner, and motivation to remarry for widows is that they report wanting to have sex.
Okay.
Yeah, we know through studies that there is a disproportionate ratio of women to men. This is due to serious health problems associated with the male body and just a shorter life expectancy for men in general. And again, this makes it harder for women to find physically and cognitively able sexual partners.
Yeah, and I think one solution, which is highly stigmatized, and some older individuals do think it's morally wrong, but masturbation for a lot of people have been a great, awesome solution. I know, I know, right? And so just for people who kind of need to find sexuality within themselves, you can say, that can be seen as a solution. And as you've already talked about, finding able sexual partners can be kind of difficult. What are some of those physical barriers that older people face?
Well, in our studies, we found that women reported experiencing things like vaginal dryness and thinning of the vaginal walls, which both can make penetrative sex more uncomfortable and even painful.
Yeah, and so with that, I know some of the solutions are things like lubrication. There are some hormonal things that you can use to help out with that. You can take zinc pills. Also, there's Replens, which is like a vaginal moisturizer, as well as suppositories has also seemed to help.
Exactly. With the hormones, postmenopausal hormonal changes definitely can affect women's libido. Most report it being lowered, but some have reported menopause is raising their libido, so I guess it varies from woman to woman.
Now, we've covered women. Now, what about men?
What about them?
Well, as older men may have also physical restrictions, one of the main ones is erectile dysfunction. It's very common, and it causes trouble getting and maintaining erections. Now, don't be fooled. This doesn't mean that they can't have sex. It just means that they have to change the way that they have sex, which means they may need several minutes of direct and physical stimulation rather than like visual, psychological, or other non-genital excitation.
Well, we all know about our happy little pill Viagra. So it's actually been studied that about 1 in 7 men actually take Viagra for erectile dysfunction. And so it's definitely a solution to the problem as well.
Yeah, we've talked about women, we've talked about men, but there are also some unisex problems, some problems that affect both men and women as they age. Medications that can influence libido and even the ability to have sex, or just diseases or illnesses, like the risk of heart attack goes up with age. You know, it's best to wait 3 months, physicians say, after having a heart attack before you have sex. Another one is arthritis and other pains that can make penetrative sex more difficult, and, you know, there are some solutions to that.
Yeah, so you know, one of the solutions is just better positions, more pillows, more comfort. You know,
pillow fight.
We love a good pillow fight. But yeah, when it does come down to those physical barriers, a lot of people assume that everybody's comfortable talking about their physical health with their healthcare providers when it comes to things like arthritis and heart attacks and stuff like that. But I know even personally for me, it's hard to talk about sex with my healthcare provider. So any more insight on that specifically?
Well, actually, yes. In older adults, it's very hard for them to talk to healthcare professionals because the assumption is that older patients are not having sex at all and that they have no sex drive left, which is not true. And some older people be very worried and scared to talk to their healthcare professionals because they're in fear that they'll be judged. But this is not always true. In some cases, such as the gynecologist that we interviewed, Dr. Campbell, there are questions that they will be asking about.
So I'm just going to play a clip of the interview that we had with Dr. Campbell, so we can kind of get some insight onto the specific questions that older women specifically do want to know.
The most common question that I get from postmenopausal patients is, what happened to my libido? Unfortunately, there are not many excellent answers or treatments for this problem. There are some, but they all have a downside. The second most common question is, why is this hurting? And then
And so she ends up going on to talk about once your partner may pass, something like that, how do you resume having sex with other partners after that? So there are some questions that older people are wondering about sex. It's just not being brought up in common media that often.
One specific problem is that older people generally did not have sex education, or at least in the capacity that we do now. This can lead them to be misinformed about sex and puts them at a greater risk for things like STIs. It can also cause embarrassment when discussing with healthcare professionals, as we established before. A solution to this might be consulting behavioral health specialists that can help facilitate communication with healthcare providers, and just knowing that providers should ask open-ended questions to alleviate anxiety surrounding this topic in their patients.
So overall, what I'm basically hearing from all of us is that this really boils down to, how do we perceive old people? How do we perceive the older generation having sex, and we see it as pretty gross when because we perceive older individuals as not being beautiful and things like that, when that's just not true. Also with the assumption that they are not having sex at all is very dangerous, because they're not getting the education that that they need. And so when it comes to how we think about older people, it's less that it's natural for them to not have sex. It's more like it's unnatural for us to be thinking that way.
Exactly.
So yeah, thank you both for coming and talking.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.